Last time we saw, Sergei went to Warren. After a few days, Theodore came to tell Anastasia that Sergei had died in the war. Hearing this, Anastasia turned to stone. Theodore continues to tell Anastasia that he doesn't understand anything. According to him, they should have won the war, but how Sergei died in the war is strange even to him. Words were reaching nothing to Anastasia. Anastasia shouts and tells Theodore that Theodore is lying all this. Sergei, can't you leave him? Upon hearing of Sergei's death, Theodore tries to calm Anastasia down as she begins to freak out, telling Anastasia to breathe better because Anastasia is not breathing properly. Anastasia's mind now has only one thing, that no one will talk to her anymore. There is nothing but sadness in his life. Saying this, Anastasia fainted. Anastasia was thinking in her mind that there was a tribe related to Rome called Elaine. The two tribes had been on very bad terms until now. However, the two tribes reconciled, and that was the reason behind the Empire's defeat. The Empire only caught on to eat when Sergei's body returned to the Empire headless. It was a miracle they were able to identify him just by his scars and armor. His head was never found. It was clear that Elaine did it because of their ritual of the decapitating the ones they defeated at war. Sergei's head must have been taken as a token to their victory, kicked around by the villagers, and thrown away without being buried. In the end, however, the Empire still won the war. But she lost her Sergei, since she wasn't supposed to have any kind of relationship with Sergei. She couldn't attend the funeral. Anastasia had nothing to do but cry. Anastasia started crying in front of Sergei's dead body. Anastasia spent many months crying over the size. Sergei's family doesn't want Anastasia to see Sergei's dead body, but they don't say a word, even though she begs them many times. Anastasia was screaming and crying, as if she had lost her mind. Anastasia has nothing to remember Sergei. Theodore breathes a sigh of relief as Anastasia goes mad, as it spreads through the servants. But somewhere, in the back of his mind, he was feeling a little bad for Anastasia. Now almost every day he saw Anastasia in his dreams. In his dreams she comforts her. Once again winter comes, and a parcel comes to Anastasia. It was from Sergei's family. Anastasia opens the parcel, and sees that there is a shirt. It is Sergei's shirt. Anastasia was overjoyed to receive the shirt. He felt that Sergei had come back to her. There he also found a letter. After reading the letter, she realizes that this is all Theodore's doing, but she doesn't understand what she did to make Theodore do this to her. She wanted Theodore to kill her right away, but Theodore wouldn't do that. He would hurt Anastasia. Anastasia has never been able to live like a human in her life. She has always seen all her wishes come to nothing. But Sergei was the only person who gave her some love, but Theodore took him away from Anastasia too. Anastasia heads to Theodore's office with Sergei's shirt, but is stopped by Theodore's manager, who refuses to let her in at all. Anastasia pushes him back, and asks Theodore why he hates her so much. Theodore's words dry up a little. When Theodore agrees to this, Anastasia asks him why. Then Theodore says that she is taking the name Everdeen. Anastasia then asks Theodore that, would Theodore have treated her a little better if she hadn't been Everdeen? When Theodore doesn't answer, Anastasia says that Theodore doesn't just hate her for the name. Theodore hates the fact that Anastasia was made by King and Count Everdeen. Theodore hates Anastasia so much because she is helpless. Theodore could not tell her anything after seeing Anastasia's sad face. But Anastasia blames Theodore for Sergei's death. Just when Theodore saw that Anastasia was holding Sergei's shirt, he realized that he couldn't change what he had done. Anastasia then thanks Theodore for killing Anastasia along with Sergei. For Theodore, Anastasia realizes what it means to live and die. But why should she accept this feeling alone? Someone has to accept this feeling too. Anastasia tells Theodore that, when Theodore loves someone, Anastasia will kill them too. She wants to make Theodore feel the same pain as Anastasia, so she tells Theodore to find someone to love soon. Anastasia's words are like roots in Theodore's throat. Anastasia also tells Theodore that, the more people talk bad about their love, or try to separate them, the deeper their love grows. Same with Anastasia. As Theodore steals the love from Anastasia, Anastasia will also steal the love from Theodore. But if she takes away his love, then people will say Anastasia never loved Theodore, so why is she doing this? By doing this, Anastasia will not get any sympathy from others, so she tells Theodore that she will love Theodore from now on. Anastasia has always followed Theodore since that day, giving Theodore a sweet smile whenever she sees him. Although Theodore didn't like this, it seemed to everyone outside that Anastasia really loved Theodore. Just then, some of the maids were saying that Anastasia first loved Sergei, but now she loves Theodore. They keep talking bad things about Anastasia, but Theodore pretends not to hear them. He couldn't concentrate on his work, only Anastasia's face floated in front of him. Theodore's manager then comes to him and asks if Theodore will work all night, to which Theodore agrees, then asks him to take some rest. When Theodore gets up to take a rest, he finds Anastasia waiting for him. As she leaves for her room with Theodore, Theodore thinks this is all drama. Theodore, however, knows that Anastasia's smile is fake, but even then he was falling under the illusion of that smile, and he kept thinking that Anastasia might love him. Theodore then took his hand away from Anastasia and told her to stop her drama. But Anastasia tries to convince Theodore that she loves him, but Theodore pushes Anastasia away into her room. As time passes, one day Anastasia receives an invitation to a royal ceremony. Last time Anastasia danced with Sergei, but this time she wants Theodore to accept that feeling. Anastasia wants to see Theodore in pain as she felt. Just then a maid comes to her room and Anastasia asks her if Theodore has agreed to have dinner with her. When the maid didn't say anything, Anastasia started beating her. Then the maid ran to the manager and said that the manager said that he will talk to Theodore. On the other hand, while Theodore is sitting in his office thinking about sleeping, his manager comes in and tells him that Anastasia has been doing a little too much lately. He asks Theodore when Theodore will break off his engagement to Anastasia. To Theodore's surprise, his servant says that he knows Theodore cannot break his engagement without the king's permission. But what Anastasia has started is turning everyone away from Theodore. Manager advises Theodore that they should break up their marriage by revealing to everyone that Anastasia is having an affair, and that she is torturing the maids. Theo then convinces his manager that now is not the right time to break off their engagement. When the time is right, he will break their engagement. Explained to his manager and asked him to prepare dinner. His manager was a little surprised. When Anastasia hears that Theodore has invited her to dinner, she stops killing the maids and starts punishing them, telling the maids that they are no less than animals, so they have their own place. When Anna asks a maid to brush her hair, the maid starts pretending to be claimed. Then Anastasia notices that the maid has eyes like her mother's, so she asks her name. The maid replied that his name was Eli Smith. When Anastasia asks about her family, the maid says that she is the daughter of a baron, but that she is working as a maid because she has many brothers and sisters. Anastasia calms down a bit by talking to the maid, and she tells her to come again tomorrow. On the other hand, at the dinner table, Anastasia was repeatedly trying to talk to Theodore, while Theodore was repeatedly ignoring her. Anastasia suddenly stops talking and starts crying. Much to Theodore's surprise, Anastasia asks if Theodore is in a relationship with someone else. Why is he ignoring her like this? Theodore no, Anastasia will never love Theodore. When Theodore tells Anastasia to shut up, Anastasia tells him that he sometimes forgets that Theodore's first dances with Anastasia. Then Anastasia got up, and went to Theodore, and said that she loves Theodore very much. But Theodore pushes her. As Anastasia leaves, Theodore's manager comes in, and tells him that he hasn't been able to collect any evidence yet. But he has full faith that the king killed the father of Theodore. Also tells the manager that Count Everdeen may be connected to the drug business. The manager also said that Count Everdeen had gained more courage after Duke's death earlier. Therefore he wants all those who bear the Everdeen family name to die. Then Theodore seemed to see himself in the manager. Theodore asks the manager what drugs Count Everdeen is involved with. Then the manager said it was asharium. Asharium is a harmful drug. Daring to use it can lead to death. Theodore then tells his manager to keep a close eye on Count Everdeen, and to mix the drug with other drugs. According to his words, the manager also started working. In the next scene we see Theodore and Anastasia arrive at a party, where Theodore thought Anastasia should also be disappear like the others. He was supposed to be happy about this, but he couldn't be happy. When they started dancing together, Anastasia kept telling Theodore that she loved him. Then came Count Everdeen. Anastasia leaves as soon as she sees him. Count Everdeen arrives and talks to Theodore about Anastasia's good and bad. He tells Theodore that Anastasia is like his own daughter to him, so Theodore treats Anastasia well. He also says that since he brought Anastasia after she was an adult, he couldn't teach her properly, which is why Anastasia is getting involved in other relationships. When Theodore began to forget Sergei, Count Everdeen came and reminded him again. When Theodore asks Count Everdeen what he wants, Count Everdeen tells Theodore that he wants to teach Anastasia well. So if he invites Anastasia to his house, will Theodore have any problem? As Theodore leaves without answering, Count Everdeen pulls him from behind and demands his answer. Theodore gets very angry, and tells him he can do whatever he wants. After moving away from Count Everdeen, Theodore searches for Anastasia. When he goes to the balcony, he finds Anastasia leaning over the balcony. Seeing these, Theodore was very scared, and pulls Anastasia from behind, and joins him. Theodore yells at Anastasia asking if she was going to jump off the balcony. But Anastasia replied that she had lost her earring. After hearing this, Theodore came away with Anastasia. The next day, Anastasia was sitting in her room, thinking that Theodore might have thought Anastasia was going to jump off the balcony. But Anastasia had never seen such emotion on Theodore's face. Just then, a servant from behind asks Anastasia if she will go to Count Everdeen's house tomorrow. Anastasia replies that she doesn't know why. Her uncle called her, but she has to go. The next day, when Anastasia goes to Count Everdeen's house, she finds Count Everdeen and his wife sitting together smoking. When Anastasia asks them why they brought her here, her uncle says that did she spend the night with Theodore. Anastasia does not understand their words. Her aunt asks her if she has had an affair with Theodore. But when Anastasia disagrees, her aunt says that she is of no use. She can only disappoint them. Then Anastasia's uncle said that if Anastasia could carry Theodore's child, she would be of some use to them. When they start laughing after saying this, Anastasia tells them that they think Anastasia is a prostitute. They were shocked to hear this from Anastasia's mouth. After hearing this, Anastasia's uncle told her that there is no difference between her and a prostitute. They brought him to the Red Fort so they could get Theodore into their hands. So for them, Anastasia is an expensive prostitute. When Anastasia contradicts this, her aunt tells her that sooner or later she will spend the night with Theodore. Anastasia wants to contradict this but can't. Her uncle tells her that she should do for Theodore what Anastasia did for Sergei. Hearing this, Anastasia starts to cry. Anastasia can hear bad things about herself, but she cannot hear bad things about Sergei, because he was her first love. When Anastasia tells her uncle to stay within her limits, her uncle throws the drug device at her. Suddenly, her uncle asks two maids to undress Anastasia. He tells Anastasia why she keeps forgetting that she is not human, that Anastasia has come this far because they sheltered her. After this incident, when Anastasia started walking towards her home, she repeatedly thought that she would give them a very painful death. When Anastasia started to go to her room, her maid called her from behind, which made Anastasia very scared. As Anastasia starts to walk away without answering her words, the maid follows her and asks if she should take a shower now. Anastasia disapproves and leaves. While Anastasia was in her room changing her clothes, her maid came to tell her that Theodore had sent for Anastasia. But before saying this, he was shocked, because Anastasia's body was full of blood. He was about to say something when Anastasia asked him to leave the room. Anastasia repeatedly asks her maid to go out, but she does not go. She keeps saying that Anastasia is his master and how can he leave her. Hearing the maid's words, Anastasia suddenly remembered her mother. The maid then asks Anastasia that, when she left in the morning, there was no scar on her body, so how come she is scarred now? Is it Count Everdene's doing? When Anastasia agrees, she says that, this happens to her every time she goes to Count Everdene's house. Anastasia is shocked to hear this, and asks him, what does it matter if this happens to Anastasia every day? Anastasia also tells her that, she is showing sympathy to Anastasia, but Anastasia doesn't need anyone's sympathy. Then his maid cries and says that, he does not show sympathy to Anastasia, because he does not deserve to show sympathy to Anastasia, he only wants to share Anastasia's pain. While the maid is dressing Anastasia, she repeatedly asks if Anastasia is really okay, but while Anastasia likes her words, she realizes that this is not love. Anastasia asked her shuts her up, and when she starts to leave, the maid comes from behind, saying that if Anastasia has done nothing wrong, then she has every right to be happy, and she wants Anastasia to live happily ever after. Anastasia wants to accept her concern, but can't, because maybe one day it will also go away. Just then Anastasia came into the dining room and saw Theodore. Anastasia is about to say something. Then Theodore informs Anastasia that Anastasia's uncle has sent a letter to Theodore. He also says that Count Everdeen is a shameless man, because he sent a prostitute to his house. Hearing this, Anastasia was shocked. Then Anastasia asks Theodore what he is saying, and then Theodore shows Anastasia the Count's letter. Anastasia found there was a lot of nonsense written about her. In the next scene, we see Anastasia's maid telling her that someone has come to see her. The woman introduces herself as Genitia from Count Everdeen. Anastasia kicks her out after seeing his clothes, but she doesn't leave. She tells Anastasia that Anastasia should be grateful that she came to teach her, because she doesn't teach anyone easily. This girl is a prostitute. Is about to slap her. The girl grabs Anastasia's hand and says Anastasia is too stubborn. She pushes Anastasia away. She tells Anastasia that there is no difference between her and Anastasia, so that Anastasia should not be so stubborn and obey her. Hearing this, Anastasia asked her maid to stand behind the door, so that no one could come in. As soon as the door was closed, Anastasia took a candle stand in her hand and started beating her. Genetic realizes a little too late that Anastasia is crazy. Anastasia is more dangerous than any rich and powerful man. Anastasia tells her that Anastasia and she is not the same. Anastasia doesn't need to learn anything from her, so she lets her go without killing her, and makes her a request. Anastasia goes to Theodore to make a request, but when Theodore starts insulting her, and said her to stop the drama, Anastasia smiles, and tells Theodore that Theodore thinks everything Anastasia does is drama. Theodore can't be angry with Anastasia now, even if he wants to. He doesn't know why. He's been feeling this way ever since he saw Anastasia trying to fall off the balcony. When Theodore asks Anastasia why she is here, Anastasia replies that she wants Theodore to allow Janet to stay here. Anastasia comes to him when he asks the reason. Anastasia replies that no one in this house talks well with Anastasia, so she wants the girl to stay here as her maid.